Hello, everybody, and welcome to your first breakout session, Track A, where we're going to be talking about living in a multi-agent plus human world. So if you've been looking around the internet today, you've probably heard terms, especially related to AI, called agents or MCP, or even A2A. So today I have Josh O'Brien here, who's the head of Generative AI at Rezolve.ai, and he's going to take us inside our Agentic Studio and show us how all of this comes together. Josh, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Josh. I'm the head of Generative AI for Rezolve.ai. I've been with the company for about 4 years, based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. I lead a lot of the innovation and development and implementations around most things AI here.
Excellent. Thanks for joining me today. So let's start off by making sure we're all speaking the same language. Let's start with the basics. When we say AI agent, what do we actually mean? How's that different from, say, ChatGPT, Cloud, or Perplexity? I can't even speak.
Sure. For the technical people on this call, you may be disappointed. I'm going to keep things real simple and explain them in like a language that Rob can understand. I'm just kidding. Yeah, when we talk about an AI agent, we talk about an AI tool that has the ability not just to respond to an input. So when you think of a chatbot, you think of you give a prompt and you get a response. An AI agent can actually think about the input, reason about what actions it should take. It has access to tools. It can, and when I say tools, either tools to grab information or tools to take action. So an AI agent is probably a lot like, probably closest thing you're going to get to an employee, where it can go through and actually take action and reason and think about things and actually achieve and accomplish real tasks for you.
So basically, Josh, an agent is essentially an AI with a job description and a toolbox. Is that right?
Exactly.
So take me to MCP. What is MCP and what does that stand for?
Sure. MCP, it stands for Model Context Protocol. And it's just like any other tech, it's like any other tech protocol that's been out there, whether you're thinking of like a TCP or some of the other common protocols. Really what they're trying to accomplish is a uniform way for agents to be able to access tools, AI agents to be able to access tools. And so what that means is that instead of having to code or configure like a traditional API call for every integration that you want to do, these companies and products and other tools will actually advertise what they're able to do. And your AI agent can reach out to that and say, hey, what can you do? And it's going to say, okay, here's the 10 things I can do for you. And also, if you want to use this tool, here's what you need to give me, and here's what I'm going to give you back. And it's a very uniform standard that's plug and play. So you don't actually have to go through and code anything. You just point your agent at an MCP server and it already knows how to use it.
So I've heard it described as a USB-C for AI. So I guess in a sense, USB-C analogy comes in from you can plug this into any MCP compatible tool and it just works. So the third piece, A2A or agent to agent protocols. And this is where it gets really interesting. What happens when one agent isn't enough?
Yeah, so agent to agent protocol, or when you think about that, you want to think about if you have like, I guess you could call them micro agents or specialized agents that can do certain things. Let's say maybe you have an agent that's responsible for searching the web, and you have another agent that's responsible for creating and triaging a help desk ticket, and maybe another agent that's responsible for HR related queries. And then so the A2A protocol is like the orchestration agent, meaning that you have a single entry point, and it's going to orchestrate what other agents it needs to use in order to be able to fulfill your specific task. You basically have an orchestration layer that you're talking to that can actually interact with other agents. Let's go through like and again, that's like a standard, an 8A standard, to where theoretically you can have an orchestration agent that's able to use these or interact with these other agents in a way that's standard, so it doesn't have to be coded or programmed every time. And I'll give you an example. Let's say that someone takes like a help desk, they open a help desk ticket and they're chatting with a bot and they want to be able to open a help desk ticket. But before you do that, you want to search the web and try to see if you can find help for them. So you may have an orchestration agent that's laying on top of that using the 8A protocol to communicate with these agents to try to find help. And if it can't find help, then go create a ticket. And it's just going to pass off these tasks and handle the context switching in between these different agents that you have, if that makes sense.
It does. So you're saying that each of these agents are operating independently in its own area of expertise, but then they're able to also communicate through structured protocols.
Exactly. So that's a much better way to put it. That's fair.
So let's get into Agentic Studio. I want to understand the building blocks before we see them in action. So what are the core components that somebody can create?
Sure. Yeah. So if we want to, do we have the studio up on the screen?
We sure do.
Okay. So you can see over on the left, you have the build, and you have agents, you have agent workflows, you have agent apps, and you have AI functions. And those are the building blocks that Rezolve sees that you would need to have in our Agentic Studio.
So what's the simplest thing I can build?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to be the AI function. And an AI function, we've got plenty of inbuilt AI functions centered around ITSM or HRIS, but this is simple input output. There's nothing very fancy going on here. This is saying, hey, I've got some information and I need you to either give me some additional information about this or transform something. And we can go in and look at, for example, this ticket classifier AI function. And you can look at obviously you've got the name and the category, but we'll just get into kind of what it does. So you can see for inputs, it takes ticket text and valid categories. And we're just going to use this AI examples to save some time. You can see, so we're going to pass a support ticket text along with some valid categories. We're going to execute it. And it's very simple. It's going to give us the category, the subcategory, the reason, and its confidence. So these are very input, output oriented blocks or tools.
So what's the next level up then?
Yeah, so after AI functions, the next level up from that would be agents. And I can show you, we make it really simple to build agents. You can create them with AI. So we'll make a quick sales assistant here just by clicking the create with AI button. Of course, I'm just going to use one of our quick examples to save time.
So can it use an AI function as one of its tools?
Yeah, of course. An AI agent can consume functions. It can consume MCP endpoints, APIs, and we'll show you what that looks like here. So here you see we've got a fully ready to go agent. Now, of course, it's probably going to take some refinement for us to be able to get it to do exactly what we want to do, but the AI generation definitely gives us a good starting point. I don't think we have time to go through all the different kind of things that you can configure on it today, but for sure. So when you go to the tools section, you can see that all these AI functions are available to select and use as a tool here. And so I will actually go to one of the agents that we've built and tested. And this is going to be our deep research and synthesis agent for web search. And you can see the tools it has access to. It's got access to MCP web search and then a web page extract, as well as follow-up question generation and query expansion AI functions. So when we go to test here, we're going to say Google Chrome is running slow. We've got a debug panel over here, so we can see exactly what the agent's thinking or what actions it's taking, the input outputs. And you can see that like an agent, it's got the ability to reflect, it's got the ability to plan, and it's got the ability to think too. So you can see it generated a follow-up question, it reflected on it. You can come down here and see all those different outputs, and it's going to ask a follow-up question here. We're going to say, I'm using a Mac. I'm not sure about the Chrome version, but I just installed it a few days ago. I don't have any extensions. It's slow on all sites. It feels like the application, not the sites. I'll show you something unique about our product is anytime kind of testing you can do, you can actually save that as a test case. And you can give it tell it was a good test case, it needs improvement, or it did not work at all. And you can say what should have happened, what actually happened. You can add notes, and you can attach it to the agent for AI refinement. And then you can actually refine with AI. You can click this, use your test cases, give additional examples, and tell it exactly what you want improved. And it'll go through and refine the agent for you so that you don't have to go through and toggle a bunch of settings and change a bunch of things.
Nice.
So you can see here, these are all our AI calls or iterations. You can see that it actually used the MCP through Tably search. You can see the queries it sent, the response text it got back, and it gave us an answer. So I think that's definitely a good overview of the agent. Of course, you can deploy these in multiple different ways. I'm only sharing one tab here, so I can't show you that today, but you've got a public URL you can configure. You can turn it on or off. You can enable it via API, Microsoft Teams, Slack, WhatsApp, all of that out of the box, really easy to configure.
Sure, but what about when you need to define a process, like not just autonomous reasoning, but do step A, then step B, then check this condition?
Yeah, and that's absolutely valid. So the thing about agents is they're autonomous and they don't always follow an order that you want them to, or do different things. And sometimes you want it like an AI flow or an AI workflow or an agentic workflow in our case that will follow a predefined task. It's deterministic. Of course, it's got some AI intelligence there, and that's what we call workflows. And we can create a workflow with AI. I'll show you we'll just use a quick example here. Now a workflow can also use agents. It can use AI functions as well. So it can interact with agents to either execute tasks. It can use functions that maybe if you need to categorize something to determine what task or what agent to call. Like if you've got an HR or an IT agent, you want it to use the IT agent, you can classify it as IT, and then you can flow that. But let's click generate workflow here.
Okay.
And you can see the available agents that it has, the AI function it has access to. And this normally takes about 45 to 60 seconds. Hopefully this one will go pretty quick since I know we're a little limited on time. But yeah, so a workflow is your tool that you have when you want something a little more deterministic, when you're talking about interacting with production systems and you want to be able to trace exactly what it's doing. So here you can see
when you need that reliability and that compliance, and if you need to prove exactly what happened in the situation.
Yeah, exactly. Those would be good use cases. We created our AI workflow here. And of course, we may need to make changes to this. We may need to refine this. This just gives us a good starting point. And you can see it's got some suggestions here that we may need to do. So we may want to do a webhook so that it can integrate with external tools. We may want to run a test to actually see if it works. And it's when you use AI to generate a workflow, it's automatically going to, based on the nodes that are inside that workflow. For example, here we've got, this is an agent task, or excuse me, this is an agent. This is a function. So we're going to triage the ticket using an agent. We're going to draft an auto response, or maybe we'll need some human escalation. And we've got some other things going on here too, but you can go through and of course test that. We make testing really simple. You can use AI to generate all your examples.
So if workflows are for when you need that repeatability and compliance, and agents are autonomous and workflows are deterministic and both have their place, what's at the top level?
That's where agentic apps come in. And I guess we can go to that. Seems like you're moving us along. Here you can see that ran successfully, but that's going to be your agentic app. So an agentic app you can think of as your entry point for your end users, or your entry point into your orchestration layer. If you want to have multiple functions, workflows, or agents working within a single unified interface. So maybe you want an employee support app, and that app may have an IT support agent, or it may have an HR support agent, and it could have a create a user workflow or offboard a user workflow, or different kinds of things. That's where your agentic app comes in. And these are easy to build too. You will click on here so that we'll edit this, and you can see you can add workflows. So we could add all these, make all these available. You can add whatever agents you want. And then of course you can test it, and you can deploy this as well with public URLs, API access, and all that stuff. So this is going to be like back to the A2A protocol that we were talking about. Okay. This is going to utilize that protocol and others in order to be able to interface with your different agents, workflows, and functions.
So earlier when I saw you building an agent, I noticed that there were tools discovered in that: Tably Crawl, Tably Map, Tably Search. What exactly is going on there? Is that MCP?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's an agent utilizing the MCP protocol. And I'll show you the integrations page for MCP integrations. This is where you can add an MCP server. And like I said earlier, MCP's really easy. You can discover tools. It's literally just a matter of naming it, giving it an endpoint, and configuring the authorization, whether that's an API key. And when you do that, this is what happens. So you get a connected status, you can see the endpoint, you can see the tools that were discovered. And what's a little different about Rezolve.ai's implementation here is that we actually give you the ability to toggle MCP tools on.
Why does that matter? Wouldn't you want all the tools available?
Not necessarily. If we come down to the asset management one, you can see that there's a ton of different tools available. And there's a couple problems there. And one problem is that the context can get too big. You're giving the agent too many options and it can get confused. Another is just security. I think when MCP first came out, agents were doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing, that the people that implemented the agent had no idea that the agent had the ability to do. Because sometimes an MCP integration can be, you can't look into it to see what it's doing. In our implementation, everything's off by default. So when you add an MCP server, all these toggles are off, and we take a toggle on approach. So you're going to go through and tell it exactly what tools you want it to do. For example, if I build a web search agent and it started mapping out a website and crawling the entire domain, that's going to be a problem. I don't want it to do that. So what I do want it to do is search and maybe extract a specific web page. But a little bit more into that visibility, and that's good when you've got to go to governance or compliance and tell them, you know exactly what's enabled, you know exactly what it's doing. And then speaking of the governance and compliance, every tool or every MCP endpoint has its own analytics page that you can click on. You can see how many discovered tools there are, how many calls there were, the success rate, the average latency, what tools were called the most. So you've got 6 to search, 1 to extract. You can come down and view exactly what the input was, exactly what the output was. And you can do that for every single call it's made, a nice little dashboard there. And of course, all that's exportable if you need it for compliance report. You can even do that on the tool level. So if we come to the extract, you can see that it was called one time, the average latency for that, the success rate, and the input. So you can say, we've pulled information from websites 102 times. Here's the information we've pulled, and so on and so forth. And I know you're probably ready to move on, but there's another thing I want to touch on too, is when you're implementing an MCP, there's default descriptions and default names that may not be conducive to your agent, meaning that your agent may not utilize it the way you want to because the name or the description isn't clear enough for that agent to understand that's okay to use it. For example, we have the search tool there says use this tool when you need updated information that might not be available in your training data or when you need to verify current facts. So when I first built my web search agent, it wasn't searching the web ever, and I couldn't understand why. And then I looked at the description and I understood that it's because it's telling it when you don't have information available in your training data. I don't want it to use that. I wanted to ground it all its answers in actual online data and not use its training data.
Sure. So you're essentially fine-tuning how this agent understands each tool.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we give it, you can put a custom description, you can put a custom title, and you can actually override the MCP server's titles and descriptions. That way you can really take advantage of it, but get it to behave how you want to.
So it's granular control at the individual tool level, not just enable this MCP, but enable this tool with this description, with this limit.
Absolutely. Yep. And I don't know if I'm probably going off the rails here, but I really like the governance and reporting aspect of this, to where you can actually view these analytics and export these out in reports. And I didn't show that you could actually do this with the functions earlier either. So that's something that I want to show, is the real kind of visibility and observability into what's going on. So if we look at our ticket classifier, we can come through and we can see the analytics for this too. We can see that there's 3 executions. They were all successful. The average latency, where it was called from. So these were called from APIs, the actual categories and subcategories that it classified, categories, subcategories, and you can come down and see all the calls that it's made. So every function that you build, every MCP tool that you have, and even endpoint that you have, all has real observability and analytics that you can use to see what's going on, to be able to communicate what's going on, and really satisfy that compliance and governance integration.
So it's great that you have these granular views into the functions, the AI agents, and the workflows, but where's the observability at a high level view?
Sure. So we definitely have a high level dashboard to where you can come in and see exactly what's going on, zoomed out at kind of an executive level or an overall level. And this is human collaboration, which we haven't talked about yet. Hopefully we'll have time to get into that. But it's a dashboard view. We can see your workflow executions, your agentic app runs, status distribution, whether something's failed, whether it's successful, whether there's an approval needed, success rate by workflow. You can zoom in and see your workflow performance and just really everything in a real zoomed out view. We're obviously going to be adding to this and iterating on this, but we do have higher levels of like agent interactions too. So you can come to your agent interactions. You can see exactly what interactions your agents had. We saw that we did the deep research assistant earlier. Somebody else must be triaging a ticket right now. You can see your agentic workflow runs and your agentic apps executions too. But for that real high level zoomed out view, your dashboard is going to be your place. You're going to look at that.
So do you trust your agents to make all of your decisions for you? Where exactly does the human element come into all this?
I don't trust my agents to make all my, absolutely no, I don't think anybody does. So there's always going to be that point where you want an approval, or even we've taken a step further. So let's say your AI agent doesn't know exactly what it should do, or it's confused about something, or it needs clarification. We think that the AI agent should be able to reach out to a human and collaborate with a human and say, hey, I'm stuck here. I don't know what to do. Can you help me? And of course, you have your approval flows too. So let's say that you built a workflow that had an approval step. So you have an agent that's responsible for onboarding. Your onboarding calls, or excuse me, your agent calls an onboarding workflow. And the first step there may be an approval. So we've got a real kind of Kanban view of all of those things. Agents reaching out for clarification or for approval. And those all come to the human collaboration board, where you can actually review a manager final approval for this is an IT for an onboarding. And so we'll click approve there. You'll see that it'll take that, and I clicked it twice, I think. So we got a little error there, but it'll move it over to the completed stage. And so we really envision this to be that nerve center or collaboration center where agents and humans are collaborating for making decisions, approvals, confusions when you're stuck, anything of that nature. We're really excited about the agent human collaboration portion of our Agent Studio.
Josh, thank you so much for coming in today and being part of this discussion. And to all our viewers out there, we really appreciate you joining Rezolve Connect 2026. I hope you guys enjoy your next sessions. Thank you, Josh.
Of course. Thanks for joining, everybody. Really excited to be here and have everybody here. And bye. Hope you enjoy the rest of the show.